want to thank our sponsors.
JustForPolice.com, a grassroots service reward program established for police officers buying and selling real estate. Jujitsu50.com, a lifestyle brand training resource for law enforcement officers, providing technique videos, blog articles, promoted courses, and the latest in apparel and gear. Jujitsu50.com. Storm Training and Consulting, offering courses in firearms, tactical emergency medicine, and the Tactical Rescue Challenge. Stormtraining.org. Manchester Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, aka Bushido, located in Manchester, Connecticut, a staple in the jiu-jitsu community for over 20 years. ManchesterBJJ.com.
There we go. Your audio's there now?
Nice.
All right.
What's up, fellas?
Hold on a second, guys.
Did you get that weird, any playback from that or?
For me?
Yeah. How's everything sound? Good?
Yeah, sounds perfect.
All right.
I just heard somebody else, though. It sounded real muffled.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Muffled.
Okay, take care, guys.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
I'll bet you've got nothing else below that shirt.
Wouldn't you love to know?
Yeah, heard you say.
Oh my God, this thing.
Look what it does to your hair.
Man, that's the quarantine growth. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. How are you?
All right.
Oh, pretty good. Oh, there you go.
Here with Yoda wearing.
Nice.
Where's his mask?
Belts for butterflies. He actually talks if there's batteries in it, but I didn't put batteries in it.
You know, Rich, I think that was a good introduction. I don't even think we needed an introduction. We're on episode 11.
Well, Rob, I accidentally joined your class and I had that on and I quickly shut off the video. I'm like, oh, I got to back out of here.
Good person to do.
Why would you back out? You should offer them some words of wisdom.
Yeah. It's a Foster's real professional.
He doesn't really care about students.
I like your background, Rich.
This is because of you.
Uh-huh.
At first glance, I thought it was all booze.
Booze.
Yeah, but I realized quickly that couldn't be it.
Rich, why don't you introduce everybody for maybe some of our watchers or listeners that don't know who's on the show right now?
We're just going to run from here?
Just run from here. I thought that was great.
So,
the best entrance we've ever had.
Welcome to the Code, episode 11. And we have Professor James 300 Foster. I want to say is Foster BJJ. It says in Seattle, but it's actually in Kent, Washington.
Because nobody knows what Kent is.
Yeah, so it's...
But everybody knows what Seattle is.
Well, welcome to the Code. And
Thank
we also
you.
have a legend on and off the mats, which that term's usually thrown around. So you have black belt Ron Garney, who is also one of the most amazing Marvel comic book artists out there.
A legend in his own mind.
Yes. And then we have my co-host tonight, Hob McGow.
Hob McGow. That's what Marcio Stabowski calls me. Calls me Hob.
Bum off the street. As Uncle
Not
said.
Hanato. I got to tell you,
got my Hanato shirt on.
What's that?
I've got my Hanato shirt on.
Oh, there you go.
Belly Tudo hour. Yeah, actually, him and I were talking last night. He called me up at like 2 a.m. and we chatted for like 2 hours. So I was up till like 4. It was crazy.
I'm sure you remember this, and I wanted to ask you if this guy ever came back to your academy. But when we were out there for Black Belts for Butterflies, Hanato was, going through his whole act.
Yeah.
Mats, and some poor guy walks in, he's just there to visit the school, has no idea there's a seminar going on, has no idea who Hanato is, and he becomes the butt of the joke for the rest of the day.
Yeah, he actually he ended up signing up, and he trains at one of my affiliates now. So, yeah, it's kind of funny because that was one of the rare times that Hanato kind of went over and talked to somebody and, you know, let them know it was kind of part of an act and a joke, you know. And yeah, Cameron's a real serious guy on the mat, but what's funny is he's the complete opposite. If you're outside of training, he's like a goofball. And then on the mats, he's like stone cold serious all the time, doesn't crack a smile, expression never changes. It's kind of funny.
I think I just discovered my problem. I'm never serious on the mats. I'm always serious on the mats.
I think there's a balance, right? You got to have a balance. You got to take the training serious, but also, you know, enjoy yourself as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Now,
What do you
Ron,
think, Rich?
I found it interesting today. So I usually, it's like do a little research, and Wikipedia, you actually have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
And
it's been
and
there
it
for a
mentions
long time.
absolutely nothing about your jujitsu.
Well, yeah, that thing has been on there since like 2005, I think.
So I gotta
And that's-
update that.
What's that?
So how do I update that?
Well,
Anybody
I've tried to
can.
update it. I actually tried myself, and it got booted off. Whoever the administrator is, they won't.
The way Wikipedia works, anybody's supposed to be able to go on and update stuff.
Yeah, I
So
tried.
I'm gonna have a field day after this. Rest assured.
Uh-oh.
Now, when did you get your black belt, Ron?
About, so was it 3.5 years ago? I just
Right,
got
because
my
you
first-
just got your awarded your
degree.
first degree. Was it last month or the month before?
Yeah, a couple months ago. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's quite an honor. I mean, you know, sometimes I just, all you guys like James and Formiga and Rob, you guys are all heroes to me. I just look at you and I'm like, it's such an honor for me to even, to get a first degree from, a guy like Formiga and Diogo, the guy I've been training with. And so it's, it was a real honor. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you,
yeah, I still look down like 14, plus years later of being a black belt. I still it still feels new to me too. So it's something really special about it that the newness of it doesn't wear off. At least for me, it hasn't.
yeah.
You just took the words right out of my mouth because I was about to say there's times I look down and I see the red bar and I'm like, who's belt?
Yeah. Yeah. When did that happen?
So I just had a total moment of the same thing happened when you came out to Connecticut for the first Black Belts for Butterflies. We all went out to dinner, and I was a new purple belt at the time. And I remember sitting there and talking to everyone, all black belts, and I was like, man, it must be great. You get to that black belt point, and you're like, you're good. And everyone's like, no way, not one bit. It's like you start over again. I was like, how the hell could that be? And now you're saying after all these years, all of you still feel like, because I still smell the fresh wrapper on my black belt.
Yeah, congratulations to you too, by the way. Rich.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I would think after that many years, you guys would kind of have, especially after your first degree, you've been a black belt for 3 years. Like a lot of my other belts, I kind of settled in after the third year.
Well,
Honestly,
you're never able to stay comfortable as a black belt. Everybody is wanting to test you. So
it's actually, it was worse once I got it. It was like, everybody goes at you extra hard.
yep.
You sure that's because of the
Then you
black
put
belt?
pressure on yourself to live up. What's that?
You sure that's because of the black belt?
That they're hard?
No, they go after you.
Yeah. I know. I mean, they want all this.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, James is always after me. So
I am. I can't help it. You know, that same dinner that he's talking about, there's a, picture of me lovingly sitting on your lap.
I'm lovingly touching.
Yeah.
I think I have one where I'm pinching your nipple too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Kept that one for yourself, huh?
Very squishy.
I prefer supple.
Supple. That's a better adjective.
Yes.
So I actually had to explain to Ron, it's like why I called him Brown Belt Ron. And it's actually
I didn't know what he meant at first. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, but it's like I had met Ron a few times when I would travel around, go to different academies. And then at Black Belts for Butterflies, it's like you brought Ron over to me and you're like, do you know who this is? And I'm just like,
I was just telling somebody that story today, actually.
I'm like, it's Ron.
Yeah, that was
insane.
Like,
but this is Ron Garney. I'm like,
yeah.
And everybody's looking at me like, who the F is this?
Well, I thought Foster was pulling my leg. I thought he was like screwing with me. I'm like, yeah, it's still Ron, Brown Belt Ron. And then
it was weird because I was only, I was vaguely aware. I think I had seen something to where I knew that he trained. But when I walked in and saw him at our seminar, it was like, no way, it's Ron Garney. And I went over and I told him I was a fan, and he told me he was a fan of mine, which was just crazy to me. So it was really cool. Just a meeting of two worlds.
That was really strange.
Yeah.
No, all the guys I trained with who were there from the little school I owned called Team Strength back then, all looked at me like, oh, here we go again, because they, on Facebook and stuff, they see
right.
So to them it was, just another thing.
Yeah.
Ron, how did you get involved in art, and how did you? At what age did you realize you had a passion to draw and that kind of thing?
I was really small, probably 3. I have pictures I did of 3 of Superman and Batman, and they look like balloons with little backwards, and so that it was as far back as that. I didn't know I was going to end up doing this. I didn't realize I was going to do this till after college or even think about it. But I've been drawing since I was little, and just happened. It was almost serendipitous because I started reading them again when I was out of college. I was bartending. I was at a bar with a friend of mine, and he had a comic. They said, "Oh, I remember those," and I picked it up and I was looking through. I'm like, and then it hit me because I went to school for illustration, and I like film directing and storytelling and all that, photography and composition. And here was all of that sort of condensed into this little format. And I hadn't picked up a comic since I was a kid, So I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome, And so I sort of got hooked right away. I asked him where he got it, and it was a little bookstore down the street. And it was a 24-hour store, so it was like 2 a.m. I ran down there. I picked up all these books, like Frank Miller and Daredevil and John Burns stuff, all kinds of stuff, and just started reading them. And then I thought maybe I could do this for a living, and I asked the guy behind the counter how I would go about getting in there, and he said, well, they have a contest, and he pointed to the shelf. They had a big Marvel tryout book that Marvel put out because they were looking for talent. And so I'm like, oh my God. So I picked, and I slaved over this thing, and they had a deadline and everything that you had to turn all the material in, and I turned it in naturally. I turned it in like the day before the deadline. And then I waited and I got a no thank you letter. So I didn't get in, but it lit a fire under me to work even harder. The guy who did win is actually still in the business. His name is Mark Bagley. And so, that's basically how it started. And then I found out that the guy whose comic I picked up again after all those years, that my friend had, his name was Mike Zack. And then somebody told me he lived in the area, so I looked it up. He lived literally like 6 minutes down the road from my house. I mean, what are the odds of that? So
serendipitous.
Yeah, I called him up. I called him up, and you know, asked him if he would look at my work, and he did. And then he came to my bar, and then when I was ready, he brought me in. It took a couple of years, you know, on and off, just, you know, working on my stuff and then bartending. And he brought me to Marvel, and I got a job that day. Actually, at DC first. So that's the story. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Pretty cool.
So
It's a
now
lot like the jiu-jitsu journey, where you fail, and then you
Yeah.
eventually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's all a learning process. Yep.
So now have you taken Foster under your wing for his art?
Well, according to him, from an interview I read a while back, he said he was a brown belt. He doesn't need my help.
I said I was like
Brown
a
belt.
purple belt.
No, you didn't. Brown belt.
I'm much better now than I was then.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've been silently working. I haven't been posting anything. So
Why
Yeah,
not?
actually, I've noticed you haven't posted anything.
well, my dream, and this may sound silly, but I'll put it out into the universe, is to, you know, get some kind of little collaboration with Ron published at some point. So maybe a cover or something cool.
No, I refuse to do jump novels or
Pirate porn.
anything for Penthouse. None of that. Come on, man. It's a family show anyway.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more like bear smut?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Bear smut.
Now, have you two rolled?
No, never have. Never. I
Yeah,
don't.
we trained a little bit
I don't
over
wanna
at his house, but
This guy. The one thing I don't want is that with this big bastard on top of me.
Oh. I'll tell you, I rolled. I'm sure he remembers back.
oh yeah, I feel bad about that still.
I don't think I've ever felt. I felt like I had a truck parked on top of me. I just remember him meeting me. It was the first time we met. It's years ago now, and he walks
A
over.
long time ago.
Roll, and then he just starts rolling with me, and I was like, literally the whole round, and it wasn't even a round. So I don't even know how long it was because there wasn't a clock set. It's one of those rounds where it just goes and goes and goes. And I can just remember the constant feeling of trying to get some breath in.
Yeah.
I just remember accidentally hurting you because I slipped, like lost my balance at one point and put a little more weight on you than I was trying to.
It was a wake up experience. We have some big guys, but I'm sure saying no one that big and that skilled.
Right.
James, have you ever had somebody who's much lighter but was so good at pressure and side control on you that you felt that way?
Not currently, like not in present times, but a lot of my instructors coming up were that way.
Yeah.
Like literally small guys, but they felt like they were like 300 pounds with their technique and their control and everything. So, but the closest I've felt to being like really smothered or anything like that was a super fight I did, and the guy was like 450 pounds.
I think you showed me that.
Yeah, and he got side control on me, and you can literally see on the video, like I'm totally white as a sheet because I literally couldn't even move my diaphragm to breathe. He had so much weight on me, and I finally got out at like the end of the match. He had already, scored, so lost the match. But yeah, that was the one. It was probably one of the only times I've ever thought about like tapping from pressure in a match, just because I got so like, I didn't have any oxygen or anything, and I was so exhausted. But that was great because that was I had a real epiphany after that and like changed my game up. And after that was kind of when I started gaining momentum and started winning a lot of the bigger tournaments. So I think it was a great learning experience for me.
I was recently rolling with this guy, Ruan Oliveira, and he did this side control thing on me where he put his hand around inside my back. Well, he pulled from here, he pulled the knee through, and then he put his hand on the middle of my back.
Oh yeah.
And applied the pressure, and I was like, ugh. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the pressure it felt just from
Professor Jiva has one he calls giving you a Jiu-jitsu hug, where he puts one hand under like that, and then he stacks his other fist on top of it. So you have two fists stacked underneath you, and he just like squeezing on you. Feel like your ribs are gonna break. It's horrible.
Your vertebrae just shoot up.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I just want to give you a hug. It's just a jiu-jitsu hug.
It's crazy, man. The little spots that make such a big difference, you know.
Definitely.
Now, you said you're instructors. I know that you're under Jiva Santana now with One Jiu-Jitsu. Who did you originally start with?
I've been with Jiva for a really long time, but when I first started, I trained. My first experience training at an actual jiu-jitsu school was I was on a business trip with my dad, and there was a school in Texas where my dad was for this telecommunication training school he was going to. And so I stayed there the week that my dad was there to get that certification, and I went every day and trained at my friend Alan Moeller's school. So that was like my first introduction to actual structured jiu-jitsu class. Before that, I'd been dabbling in it. Me and other people at the karate school I trained at were trying to reverse engineer what we saw Hoist do in the UFC, and we had a quote unquote grappling class a couple days a week where we would try to, reverse engineer how to do an arm bar, how to do an Ezekiel choke, all these different things. And so I didn't have any formal training, and I did that week of training down in Texas. And when I got back here, I found Marcelo Alonso's school. Marcelo's he's a legend in jiu-jitsu. He actually ran Carlson Gracie Senior School in Brazil for many years, and
comes out here too. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So he was actually my first instructor who I was with for about a year, and then unfortunately back then his lawyer had done his visa paperwork wrong, and they caught it, and he ended up getting sent back to Brazil. And I'll never forget showing up to go to class that night, and everything was down. The lights were out. The place was locked. All the signs were gone. And it was like, what's going on? Where is everything? He got sent back to Brazil, and shortly after that, one of the students took over, bought the school and brought in some other instructors. And that was how I ended up with my instructor, Giuliano Prado, after that. And that's how I met Jiva. And then I ended up, sticking with Jiva after Giuliano kind of switched to associations and things. So, but all of my instructors coming up were all smaller guys. But Giuliano was like 145, like 5'4", and he kicked my butt all the way through brown belt, regularly, tapped me over and over and over. Brown belt, I started holding my own a little bit more, but definitely super technical. His rule for me, I remember one day he came up to me and he said, James, he said, you're always going to naturally be good on top. Like a bigger person is always going to naturally be better on top. So what's it going to hurt if you just work from your back? And he made a rule for me. He said, the only way you're allowed to be on top is if you sweep the person. So every time we would roll, anytime I rolled with somebody, I had to start from the guard, and the only way I could be on top is if I swept them. So that was really how I started being forced to develop the technical aspect and work my guard and be well-rounded and not just be a big guy that smashes people all the time.
I feel you.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny because Rob says that a lot at our academy to the bigger guys, especially the new ones coming in. And it's like we always use you as that marker to let people know this is the example because of the size of you. And it's like, sure, you can be really good on top, but what happens when you get flipped over? It's like, so I've heard that a ton of times at our academy. And
it's all relative too, right? Just because I'm big, like the guys I compete against are as big or bigger than me a lot of times. So if I had horrible technique and I wasn't well-rounded, I wouldn't be able to do well in competition.
I've seen so many big guys who do have absolutely horrible technique because they rely on their size.
Yep.
You know, they
And
get-
until they run into somebody with better technique that kind of calls them on it, they can get away with it.
It's got to be a major wake-up call for them too, because it's hard enough to find people your own size to train with, and then if you've ignored a certain aspect of jiu-jitsu and then you get faced with that, it's a big stake through the heart.
Yeah. We get a lot of out-of-town visitors that come to train with me. Like schools will send their bigger guys that you know, aren't getting pushed in training or haven't experienced somebody who's big and technical that can kind of manhandle them. And so I get to roll with those people and kind of give them a little dose of what that feels like and try to teach them, you know, because they get frustrated. It's like, well, the thing I do isn't working on you. I normally do this and I get out, and it's like, yeah, because it's not technical. The only reason that's been working on other people is because you're stronger than them. And now you're having to look at how much technique you actually have, and it's a big eye opener.
That's weird.
Now-
I've actually been accused of being too technical.
Oh man.
Like where I don't, like I'll have the arm bar, but I'm doing it.
Oh yeah.
Instead
Being
of,
too nice.
yeah, exactly. Instead of just taking the damn thing.
Yeah, I never, you know, I always apply everything with control. I never just reef on anything.
Now, Ron, I'm always interested in how people started jiu-jitsu. So I think that's one of the things that anyone new to jiu-jitsu always likes to hear. It's like that pathway. It's like, how did you start? It's like, what got you into it?
Yeah, you know, probably. Well, I guess if I were to go really far back, my interest sort of started right when Hoist won the UFC. I mean, because I got the very first broadcast of that. You know,
Yeah, same for me.
really into it. I was like, man, that's just to see this guy tear apart all those guys who were twice his size. Like, I was like, my God, that's amazing, you know. And so, I mean, I had always had it on my mind, you know, but I always lifted weights, and I was a lot bigger back then. But I got bored with lifting weights, and then eventually I just ran into a MMA school when I was going to FedEx to drop some stuff off for Marvel, and I looked, I'm like, because it had been on my mind, I'm like, oh, there it is. I had just been thinking about it, and there's an MMA school. So it was this guy Andrew Calandrelli's place, Ultimate MMA. And I walked in, I handed a year's membership, just walked in and paid, and started. And in the first couple of weeks, I was doing Muay Thai, and I broke my foot.
Oh man.
Yeah.
You kick somebody's elbow?
That was yeah, just throwing a kick. It just,
Yeah.
next thing I know, my foot was like this big. And so I hobbled out of there. So I just started doing the jiu-jitsu, even with the broken foot. If you look at my Facebook page back when I was a weight belt, I'm there at a promotion ceremony with crutches on, but I was still training. I was getting on the ground and still trying to train the jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That's basically how it started. And then he brought over, I was doing no-gi for a long time first. And then he brought over this guy, Renato Migliaccio, who does Sampa in California. Maybe you know him, James, but he's really great.
Familiar.
Yeah. He's in Glendale, I think. Anyway, so he was teaching for a long time, and he got me hooked on the gi. Because, you know, it's such a different world when you finally put that thing on, and you can, you know, it's so much more deliberate chess match that way. And, you know, whereas the no-gi obviously is faster and more explosive, and you have to be a little more clever. And whereas the gi is more, you know, up here, I think. So, yeah, so that's how it started. And then I had an opportunity to open up a small school with this black belt named Chris Watson, who was at at the Black Belt for Butterflies. And so that's basically how my journey went. And then I met Formiga, and, you know, and here we are. So
Does Formiga come back to Connecticut at all? I know he's in Dallas now.
he was here for over the holidays. Saw him then. You know, he came by to Cromwell to the Cage, and you know, did a seminar. I saw him there. So he comes back from time to time. He was coming back a lot in the beginning, but then You know, he had a thing with soul fighters. He's no longer a soul fighter now. It's double five jiu-jitsu with Joao Roca. You know Joao, obviously. Who doesn't know Joao? You know Joao, right, James? Obviously.
Not personally, but I know who he is.
Yeah, well, he's been here too, actually. He brought him up from me, or brought him over here once. But yeah, so he's out in Texas with him now. But he still makes his way out here and there. Not too often like it used to be, though.
I had the opportunity to roll with him one day, and that was just
Eye opener. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's fun to watch compete.
It's like he rolled with me. He tapped me out. He was super nice about it. You know, he never put anything on hard. But then he called his wife. He did his grocery list. I think he did like the inventory at the academy while he was rolling with me. And it's just like, it was unbelievable. It's so smooth.
Just like when we roll.
No, I'm a little bit more aggressive with you.
Oh, okay.
You know
Is that what it's called? I thought it was desperation.
That was a big ass kicking, but worse than I received from you was the one you gave to him when you came to Connecticut. No, when we went to his school, he gave you were talking some shit to him from.
Oh,
before we went.
he was
Rich would never.
You should have seen the face when I put on that calf slicer. He was like, "Oh," it was like, you knew what was happening.
Yeah, I trained with Rich over here, and I was like astonished at how often he went for my legs.
I know.
It was like
he's a one trick pony.
No, like,
that's what you call a one trick pony.
Stuff, you know, kicking him off like
low hanging fruit. He's not gonna go. For
yeah.
all the time.
What movie was that where the guy was dancing and they're like, he's doing the dice thing too much, and the guy's like, that's all he has. It's like his only dance move he knows. That's how Rich is with leg locks.
Hey, it's funny to say that because I held him and he's just gotten over the butthurt of it. But I held him a good year and a half. I wouldn't give him his black belt because he wasn't.
I remember.
You remember, right?
Yeah, because I remember you asking me, which meant a lot to me. You were kind of asking what I thought about if he was ready for his black belt and whatnot. And we were kind of trying to coordinate, like, getting a bunch of us out there for his promotion and everything, which unfortunately I wasn't able to do. But yeah, I remember that, because I remember talking about like what you were trying to get him to develop and round out in his game before you took that step.
He actually did. I mean, I honestly think, that it lit a fire under him, and he was, for a little while, he was like mad, but it was actually good for him.
Yeah.
His wife contacted me about the black belt, and it was like the night before or something. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Or a couple days before maybe, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
Plans. But did I write to you and congratulate you early?
Yes. No, you thought you did.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay.
Yeah, you sent me a message, and it
felt
like
so bad. Like, what an idiot. I'm like, I blew it. His wife's like, oh yeah, he's getting his black belt. Can you? I'm like, oh man, I wish I could go. And then I wrote to him on the day I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought he had gotten it, and isn't that what happened?
But I had gotten it that, I think you wrote to me that night, but then you thought you wrote to me too early.
Okay.
And you sent one message, and then you sent another, being like, "Oh no!" And it was like, oh.
tried to save face.
No, that year was definitely I wouldn't say I was like I was frustrated at first, but I think I had more progression in that 1 year than any other year of jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely, it's like, because I just filled so many small little holes and things started connecting, and it was like it really was like being able to put a pair of glasses on and see clearer.
Yeah. It really feels like starting over. At least for me, it felt like I learned way more since I've been a black belt. Like even in the first few years of black belt, I felt I had learned more than I did in the entire time I've been training. And I think you're just in a better place to accept the information once you reach that point than you are prior to that point.
Yeah, I think it's much less of a distraction, the idea of getting there.
Yeah.
Kind of there now. It's just about learning and just for the fun of learning it.
Yeah, you're able to focus on the process more and enjoy the journey and enjoy the process instead of having those landmarks you're trying to hit.
For sure.
No, I definitely think that it's like I heard so many people say it's like when you get the black belt, there's this pressure. There's so much pressure, and I didn't feel that when I got it. It was more like relief, and then
Right.
I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun just training and learning, and that's I never had that huge amount of pressure. I felt that pressure as a brown belt. That's when I felt the most pressure, I think.
I think you feel that pressure more too when you run your own academy. You know, if you run your own academy and you're the head person, you know, I started teaching as a purple belt and running my academy as a purple belt. So that's a kind of a learning on the job type of thing, and a lot of pressure. And actually having a successful school and having people come and sign up at my school when there's several other black belts in the area back then. So it's like really trying to stay on top of your game and provide the highest quality instruction, and also trying to build yourself up and all of that and improve yourself. It's a whole different ball game.
Did you feel any pressure being a purple belt with the school and having with the idea of a student tapping you in front of the class, or did you feel?
No, I never really felt that way.
Because you want the students to believe in what you're telling them, you know?
So. Yeah, for me, it was more in regard to competition. I had this twisted view of competition because I thought if I went and lost that all of my students were going to quit. So that was what I had convinced myself, like, man, if you lose this match, you're going to lose your school. All your students are going to quit. In reality, it's complete opposite. Everybody's proud of you. They support you. They like that you actually got out there and did it and pushed yourself and led by example and all these things. But back then, at the maturity level I was at, it was like, man, if I lose, like I remember before I did the match, I had just got my brown belt and I did a no-gi match with Jeff Munson. And that was at the time when like Jeff Munson, of course, done great at ADCC and like never been taken down in a grappling competition at the time, like just a monster, you know, short and 265.
Raps or like,
yeah, just roided out of his mind. And I remember I went out, but that was what I was telling myself leading up to the match was that if you lose, all your students are going to quit. So I went in with a total horrible mindset, like the worst possible mindset I could have. And I remember I double legged him and I took him down. And I was so shocked that I had taken him down because it hadn't been done before in competition up to that point. Like, oh crap, I took him down, now what? And I kind of like sat in his butterfly guard and kind of like just froze up. And then it was one of those like where you can tell your body what to do, but you can't move type of things. Like literally like one of those dreams where you're trying to scream and you can't scream. Like you're having a nightmare. It is that feeling, like literally trapped within your own body. And he ended up eventually getting me with like some kind of neck crank or something. But yeah.
The perfect way to describe it. Like, 'cause
yeah, totally. It's just that
telling yourself what to do and your body doesn't respond.
Yep.
I was in the New York Open, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I went against this guy, his name is Gay Cobham, and he wins all this stuff. But when I was under him, like he double-legged me, and I was under him, and I'm like, my mind, I'm like looking up at the lights, and all I could hear was everybody screaming my name.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
but it all sounds like white noise at that point, you know.
I'm just looking at the lights, I'm going, what the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I get my knee in, or just something simple?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very surreal feeling.
But I'll tell you, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead, Ron.
No, I was just gonna say, it's a surreal feeling, but when you walk out there, I have a hard time describing the feeling, and you guys would know, when you go out there to compete, and it's like there's a scene in 300 where he says it's a heightened sense of things.
Right.
And when you go out there, you get this moment of awareness of it. Like it's this, I can't even explain it. It's like,
Yeah.
you feel a sense of life that you've never felt, of living. And I would imagine it's a instinctive sort of evolutionary trait,
Yeah.
from the guys who, had to compete in the days of Rome even, and they had to go, but they're going out there, they're going to get eaten by a freaking lion or
Yeah.
gutted by a sword or whatever. So you can only imagine that feeling they had in those moments where life was like, you're looking around, but you feel a little bit of that going out to compete.
You do, and I always tell my students, like, while I don't require that any of them compete, I encourage them to at least try it once, because I tell them that this will give you a glimpse into how you would react in a real self-defense situation. Thankfully there's a referee there and there's rules and everything, but that's going to give you a small glimpse into how your mind works when you're under that kind of pressure and you're dealing with the adrenaline and the nerves and all these different things. And if you go out there and completely shut off, you got to work a little bit more on that aspect and being comfortable under that kind of pressure.
That's weird, because I used to be a bouncer back in the 80s. Back when I was jacked, and roided up or whatever. But but I would get in scraps then, and it wasn't the same. I mean, because it's just more of an immediate sort of thing. This is something that where I'm standing there the whole day waiting to go on.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just different when you have people, your friends and students looking at you, and it just was a whole different. I mean, and I'd never experienced that like that.
Yeah.
I competed one other
the movie,
time.
Hard to Kill.
What's that?
For the movie Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Everybody
Oh
wrote
yeah.
Anticipation of death is worse than death itself.
Yeah. Right.
It's kind of the same thing. You're like anticipating.
Yeah.
Sitting there all day waiting. It eats away at you. Versus just throw you in there, you probably just do better.
It's so true, because I was there from 8 o'clock in the morning, and my match didn't happen until almost 5.
Yep.
And it was supposed to go on at 12:30. So 12:30, I was feeling good. My adrenaline, and then I had an adrenaline dump.
Yep.
It was just, I'm like, by the time it came, I was just exhausted, and I couldn't get myself quite up it the way I had.
It's so hard too, because a lot of times they'll tell you to, you're going to go at this time. And I remember one year I went down to California for Pan Ams, and I always try to get there at least 2 hours before, my call time. And I remember going in like 2 hours before, and they were calling me for final call saying I was going to be disqualified if I didn't check in at the mat. And I'm like literally there 2 hours before they, it said I was supposed to be there. And I like run down and change, and I'm doing burpees by the side of the mat, like right before the match started, like jumped in there. I ended up winning on points, but it was a crazy experience. Like you either got to wait all day or they're going to tell you you're late and you got to go right now. Oh, what do you got? Oh, pistachios. There you go.
Now you've competed with the IBJJF format as well as the Fight to Win. Now,
Yep.
I went to a Fight to Win with one of your big competitors when I was in Dallas. Me and Robert DeFranco went out.
Oh yeah. I don't think that
like
word. I don't think that word means what you think it means.
And it was my first Fight to Win watch, and it was like all of a sudden the guys go up, they go on stage, and then it was so quiet. There was like no noise, no one cheering. It was just like it was church all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a weird environment.
It's a weird feeling. Yeah, it's different. And being up under the lights is different. Like being on the stage with the production and having a walkout and all that. Like when I did my first Fight to Win and I went against James Popolo, I went out there and when I got on that stage with the music and everything, like it took me way outside of my normal character and how I approach competing. I remember if you watch the video, I like sprint around the edge of the stage and I'm like all amped up. Like I never do that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you know, I went out and I like passed his guard right away, but then I made a stupid mistake because I just wasn't mentally dialed in. I was like too aggressive, which I corrected. I corrected it the second time I competed on there. But yeah, I'm usually banged up going into all my matches though, Rich. So that doesn't really. I
remember the James Popolo one, or did you get hurt during the match?
My knee was already hurt going into the match, and then that was the knee he caught. He had a weird. Well, he went kind of a 50-50, but I backstepped, so I ended up in a weird position where I was in 50-50, kind of 50-50 with knee on belly on him. So the leg that was trapped in 50-50 was on knee on belly, and he was trying to off balance me, and I felt my knee pop. And then from there, I was kind of tentative. I was like, oh man, this is my bad knee. And I knew I had Master Worlds not too many weeks after that. And so I was like, crap, now my knee is hurt worse. I've got a tournament coming up. And then he ended up catching the knee bar on it. And that was kind of one of those situations where I contemplated, like, if I could let it go a little further and maybe get out, or if I needed to be smart and tap. And I ended up making the choice of being smart and tapping. It popped a couple more times while he was cranking on it. So I was like, all right, might be able to gut it out, but it's not like I'm getting paid $1 million or anything. So
yeah, it's just the knee stuff is just
knee stuff is not fun.
I was the first time I was supposed to compete, I actually was rolling with Nick Newell, the one, you know, the MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Got the one arm thing, but he rolled into a knee bar and cracked my knee, and I was all swollen. I couldn't even compete the next time.
Yeah, that's the worst, man. I've had plenty of knee injuries over the years.
Well, did you guys see I only saw the highlight videos of the match this past weekend.
Oh, with Vinny and Craig?
Oh.
Yeah, what was up with that?
Yeah, it's just stupid because, you know, Vinny plays this whole gimmick of leg locks don't work and all that, and he's like triple jointed in his ankles and things, I think, and so he really doesn't feel like anything when people are putting the leg locks on him. But, you know, it unfortunately, if it breaks, then it doesn't matter if you feel it or not. You're not going to be able to continue, and that's what happened. It broke. It completely got turned the wrong way and broke. And then he kept trying to go because it broke on I think the first one Craig got right at the beginning of the match. And then Craig broke it the rest of the way when he put it on the second time. And that's why they kept talking, was because Craig was telling him, hey, I felt it break. Are you sure you want to keep going? And so they kept going. And then eventually, you know, Craig talked to him some more. And then Vinny was like, all right, I can't even move my foot. Like, my ankle's broken. And I just, you know, for me, that whole thing just sets a bad example for other practitioners. It's like, what's the point of that? You know, what are you teaching people through that? Yeah, you're really tough and you didn't tap, but you got your leg broken. You've got a wife and kids at home. And now you're, you know, going to be hobbled up, and who knows when you're going to be back to normal, you know?
Who's that MMA fighter who kept doing that to guys?
That was Paul Harris, yeah.
Paul Harris, yes.
Yeah, he wouldn't let go when they were tapping, and then he'd try to act like he didn't know afterwards.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just there's such a thin margin there when it comes to those. When somebody knows the proper braking mechanics on a leg lock, there's such a thin margin of error. Like me, I really don't feel like heel hooks and toe holds and things. Like, I don't feel it, but I know physiologically it can only go so far before the bone's going to break. So when I'm feeling a certain pressure, I'm like, okay, I need to tap, because, you know, I'm not going to feel the pain until after it breaks.
It's funny because in you know, in my career, obviously, as a police officer for the last 23 years, I've seen many circumstances where you can pop somebody's arm or whatever. They don't even feel it. It completely ignore it. I've seen people shot 2, 3, 4 rounds. They keep coming. Positional control is by far the best. It's just isolating someone's movement, holding them down, and weathering the storm with them until they lose all, because they'll pop things right and left, and they doesn't even make a difference to them.
Feel it,
yeah, arm locks and leg locks are not good in those kind of situations because somebody can gut out getting their arm or their leg broken, but, chokes ideally, blood chokes, but unfortunately you guys are restricted a lot in law enforcement with what you can and can't do regarding that. But
look what happened to that guy in New York,
Oh yeah. But you take away the electricity from the computer goes away, and it doesn't matter how tough somebody is. You take the blood away from the brain, you can be super tough, but you're going to go out. So
a lot of times we're not going against competitors, though. We're going against people that might already have some kind of problem. They might already they're under the influence of a lot of narcotics. They have all kinds of other issues, and then the choke in combination with that.
So you got to be extra careful.
Yeah, but then you end up in a situation where you don't know that you're pulling over John Jones.
Yeah.
How many times is that now? Just got it again recently.
It's like, all I got to do is put a blood choke on this guy.
You know what was really sad about that video, other than the fact that he keeps messing up and he's an idiot, that he keeps making these mistakes and throwing away his career, but the whole thing about that really was sad was where he's telling the officer, he says, you're probably going to have to explain this to me again because I'm a fighter and I get hit and my short-term memory is really bad. So I might ask for you to tell me this again because I might not remember or understand your instructions.
You see,
even guys who are getting minor head trauma are running into a lot of problems with that, with the CTE and things.
Yeah, I picked up on that too, but I also thought to myself when I was watching it that he was trying to name drop a little bit by saying,
well, I mean, there's no doubt that they knew who he was too, because I'm sure those guys have probably arrested him before.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I got to ask you, a lot of the people listening can't see where you're sitting, but you're in your E-vault.
Yeah, I'm in the show you roll cave.
How many do you have? Do you know the exact number?
I don't currently, because I separated out a bunch to give away or to auction off. I would guess, I mean, there's got to be just what's here behind me. That's probably 250.
Oh, don't tell us, because what we need to do is we need to try to guess each one of us, and whoever comes closest, we get.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but see, it would be a blanket on you. It'd be like a tent.
Ron's a big guy. Ron, what are you, 250?
It's an A4. No, yeah, 250.
Mine's A5.
So. Below 220. I started the keto diet actually, and so I take it back. I haven't been able to get below 220 in years, and so then I just was like, what the hell, man? And so I looked at the keto diet and was saying how you don't, you just cut out all the sugars completely.
Yeah.
Like raisins and, all the good sugars, like from fruits and stuff that I always thought were healthy, which they still are. But the problem is because I sit so much too.
Yeah.
Just cut
I've heard a lot of things about people saying their joints feel a lot better because it's supposed to reduce because the sugar is a big trigger for inflammation.
Yeah.
So they claim that their joints feel better and everything too.
Yeah, I was going to say that I didn't do it, I didn't commit to it 100%, but I looked at some of the principles of it and I knew what my diet was. So I just adjusted like the pistachios here. Normally I might have raisins or something.
Right.
Like that. So I started eating more nuts and almond milk. I make almond milk shakes in the morning and, just changed it that way. And I couldn't believe it. Like all of a sudden, like within a week, I had lost 1.5 pounds and my stomach started flattening out again a little bit. And I was like, wow. So it really works. Definitely works.
I started the quarantine diet and My wife's been baking a lot, so.
What was it like for you growing up and realizing that, okay, I'm growing, but it isn't stopping?
You know, it was the
you just keep going and going and going.
the worst part of that was the growing pains. Like I remember like even in my early 20s still having growing pains in my shins.
Wow.
And like literally pain to the point of bringing me to tears, just like aching and throbbing. And I remember laying in bed and just like crying because my legs hurt so bad. So that went on, I think, through like when I was like 22, 23 before it stopped. But yeah, I don't know. You know, I was kind of like a stocky little fat guy when I was like probably through 13, and then around 15, 16 was when I sprouted up, and when I was 16, I was 6'3", and then when I was 18, I hit 6'5" and stopped there. So
don't lie, you weren't crying because of the growing pains. You were crying because your dick stopped growing at 8 years old.
Oh my goodness! I thought you said this was a family-friendly one, Ron.
Oh yeah. Anyways, right out.
You had to take it there.
Did you ever do any weight training?
Oh, I did. I was really into bodybuilding in weights for a long time, up through like probably purple. When I was first a purple belt, I was doing jiu-jitsu like 4 days a week and lifting weights for the other 3, like no days off or anything. And yeah, I was big into that. Like I was 260.
You don't do it anymore?
No.
Because you still look like you do. Like you're
I do body weight stuff. So, but I don't, as far as weights, like I have a pair of Bowflex dumbbells that I use every now and again, but actually here during this quarantine, I've probably done way more extracurricular exercising than I've done in forever. So like the past like 5 or 6 weeks, like I've been doing a lot of stuff like body weight and bands and stuff like that. I actually, you know, for me, it's kind of weird. There's a strange silver lining in this whole thing of being stuck in this quarantine. Is I had a friend of mine who I've been friends with for a long time who I kind of lost contact with. And he's a guy who went down to Hollywood to become a big writer and all of this, and kind of like all that failed for him. And he ended up moving back here and developed severe depression and a bunch of mental disorders. So he's got like agoraphobia, where he can't go outside and all these different things. And through this quarantine, we reconnected, and he's actually started writing again, and we're working on a little, you know, silly comic book project together that I'm drawing with him. You know, he's writing and I'm drawing, but part of this is what I'm getting to is that he told me how much he weighed and how much weight he gained since I last seen him. And this guy's not like, he's like 6'1", but he doesn't have the frame to be 275, which is what he is right now, or what he was before we got started. So I said, hey, let's start doing these workouts together every day. So every day I film him a video of me doing a workout. I upload it to YouTube and send it to him. He does the workout and films it and sends it back to me for accountability. And he's already lost 6 pounds. And he's doing a lot of the things that he wasn't able to do and hasn't done because of his depression and stuff, through this connection that we've made during this quarantine. So as much as all of this sucks, like to me, if I'm helping him a little bit through this, it's kind of cool. It's like pretty neat to see like how it's put him in a place, because he told me, now you guys all know how I've felt for the past 8 years with these mental disorders and things that I have. And he goes, I'm just looking at the world going, oh, now everybody knows what it's like, because he's been sheltered in place for like the past 6 to 8 years, crippled by his mental disorders and things. So, but it's kind of cool how, you know, just taking that time to work with him and help him out, that we've been able to do some cool things together. So, and I've lost like 4 or 5 pounds since him and I started doing that too, which has been great, because I started the quarantine at like 315, which is the heaviest I've ever been. and now it's slowly starting to come down, which is a great benefit of helping him out as well.
That is nuts. 300.
Yeah, 315. Yeah.
I bet you're learning the same thing as a lot of people, though, is that doing all this extra exercise that you normally maybe don't do because there's nothing else to do right now. You realize how much you miss jiu-jitsu, and that's your favorite form of exercise.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. You know, that's why I stopped doing all the weights and stuff is around when I started running my academy, because just literally you have a limited amount of resources, and if I want to get great at jiu-jitsu, I want to put all those resources into jiu-jitsu. So I used to wear myself down lifting weights and doing all these other things, and then taking away from my ability to advance my jiu-jitsu. So it's why, you know, now coming back to it, like, I enjoy it, but it's definitely not the same.
So you guys haven't gotten together and trained with anybody? Because I've been training with Diogo Marino.
No, I haven't.
Because we both know we don't have it. So it's like.
No, I was, so I've been training with my wife, and I've been teaching the classes with her. So my wife's, she's been training forever. She's a purple belt. And so I
saw you with
her
shoulder.
Yeah, I lifted her up. Kind of, you know, for me is I was working with one of my other black belts and doing the videos with him because I knew he was taking the situation seriously and was doing the things that you should do. So I know he doesn't have it or anything, but I had to kind of take a step back and go, you know, if I'm working with him, what kind of example am I setting for my students? So I made the decision to stop doing that, just so I was, you know, trying to do what I felt right in the example that I wanted to set as far as people, you know, how I thought people should approach it. Which obviously is, you know, there's a million different opinions out there, but you just have to do what you feel is right for you and your team, essentially.
Yeah, I've only been training with, I've got 3 sons, and they all train. But
that's great.
They're like, you know, the youngest is 10, the next one up is 13, and then the oldest is 18. So
yeah,
you know, he's a solid blue belt and a little bit better than that probably. So he's a good training partner for me, but he's working a lot too. So
yeah,
hard to do that. So once a week or so we get together and roll. But I'm kind of the same thing, as I'll get together and do some videos for people, but I feel bad. You know, I don't want to train because then all these other students that can't, you know, I kind of feel like I'll suffer with them.
That's my thing. Yeah. That's kind of my thing. And, you know, as somewhat of a, I don't know, a B-level leader in the jiu-jitsu community, or somebody to set an example in the jiu-jitsu community, I think it's important on how I put forth what I represent and what my team represents. And also remembering that I'm representing my instructor and his affiliation as well, and trying to make the smart decisions is it's not always easy and it's not always fun, but you have to do what you feel is right given the circumstances you're facing.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Ron?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Rob, you were talking about training with your sons and stuff. That's awesome, the blue belt level. Like my son, I was teaching him myself, but I was also bringing him to Brad Wolfson's school. And Brad's a great guy.
Great guy.
And, yeah, he's really a good dude. And he runs a great school. And but my son he's funny because he's just got this thing. He's like, my wife doesn't like the touching, and you know, it's just the way he is. But
yeah, he's the one you had me work a little with when I was there, huh?
Yeah. It's funny because now that I don't force him to do it, he's more apt to want, like, I'll say, come give your old man some business. Like, you know,
right.
They'll come and he'll just come at me as hard as he can. I'll say, all right, if you can pass my guard, I'll give you $20 to get a new skin for your Fortnite or whatever.
Oh, there you go.
And he can't pass my guard because so I don't let him, keep stops him from spending money on there. But
yeah,
it's still fun, to train with your kids, and I teach my eldest daughter some stuff too. So it's
that's good.
I remember my oldest trained since he was little, but then football took him away from it. He was huge into football, and he was gone from jiu-jitsu probably about 4 or 5 years. And then I would say right around towards the end of high school, he wanted a job somewhere, and I was hiring a front desk person at my academy. And he's like, "Oh, can I put in for that?" I'm like, "No, you don't train jiu-jitsu." And all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, maybe I will now." So then he started training, and I'm like, "All right, you prove to me you want the job first." And then, then he got into, and then once he got there and started getting back into it again, now he's in the adult class, of course, and then he was sold at that point. And
yeah, he just needed the right incentive, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I had a couple other questions. One for James. I was all scheduled to compete again. IBJJ. I was going to do the Orlando Open, and everything happened. I haven't competed in a few years. What do you got for? And I've never competed IBJJ. I've done all the Nagas and all that stuff. What do you got for advice for a guy like me, 48 in October, getting back into competition after a few years?
Run while you can.
I've really, I've trained myself to not look at it really any differently than going in and rolling at the school. So for me, I don't look at it. It's just a different setting and different people that you don't get to regularly roll with. So me going in with that approach is when I perform the best. I don't look at it as being different just because it's a tournament or just because it's in a different location. So I think trying to approach it how you would approach training, how would you go in and approach leading up to rolling in class?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to do some crazy routines that you never do? I've been interviewed about it, and I've done a couple articles and things, but it's like, I don't go and listen on headphones to angry music before I roll in class. Like, why am I doing it at the tournament? Like, I try to practice the same habits, the same warm-up routine and all of that when I go out and compete. So for me, that's the most helpful, and just the mental aspect. The mental training is huge. That was the biggest breakthrough for me was doing a lot of mental training, whatever you want to call it, with your mantras or your positive self-talk and all of these different things, and not allowing negative thoughts to stick in your brain without changing them around to something positive. Like if you see in your head some negative scenario, always see yourself reversing it and coming out the victor. The mental training leading up to a competition actually wears me out more than the physical training, because I always have to be on top of myself with that. Whenever a negative idea pops into my head, I have to be on top of it and turn it around. So the mental approach, and then just looking at it like another training session, being excited that you're getting to train with different people. Like for me, it's cool to get to roll with different people I don't normally get to roll with. And I'm always excited now. Like a lot of times I go and it's a lot of the same guys in my division who I've already faced before and maybe who I've already beat or lost to. And then I go, man, I get to go against this other guy this time. How cool is that? Like I get to test myself against somebody I never competed against before. Like a couple of years ago, I got to go against Eduardo Telles, which was really cool for me. Obviously, he's like a legend in our sport, right? Like turtle guard and all of this stuff. So getting to go, and man, I get to test my skills against him. I always look forward to getting to go against people I haven't gone against before, because I know they're going to show something in my game, be it positive or negative, that hasn't gotten exposed before. Mm-hmm. So to me, I look at it as just a positive experience all around. I don't put a lot of extra pressure on myself anymore to perform in a certain manner.
And leading up to a bigger tournament, you don't have like a camp, like so many weeks and all that?
I do, to where I start ramping my training up over a 4 to 6 week period. But my training consists of just rolling a lot. So if I'm getting ready for a tournament, by the time, like if I'm at my peak point in my 4 to 6 weeks, let's say like I reach the peak maybe like 2 weeks peak. As far as what I mean by that is I'm training my hardest. Like a couple weeks before the tournament, I'll be rolling like an hour or 2 hours straight with no breaks, one match after the other, 5, whatever your rounds are for the tournament. Is that if I go into the tournament knowing that I can roll an hour straight with no breaks, with the amount, like maybe I'm doing, you know, numerous rounds or 2 hours. If you go and do that, going in and doing 5, 8, 10 matches in a tournament feels like nothing. If you actually get a break in between the matches at a tournament. So for me, it goes back to that whole thing again. What am I trying to get good at, or what am I trying to prepare for? Well, I'm trying to prepare for having great cardio for rolling. So why am I going to do all this extra stuff that takes energy away from it and doesn't benefit me when I get out on the mat? Because you guys know as well as I do, it's very hard to simulate grappling, actually grappling a person. It's very hard to simulate that in extracurricular exercise. It's just not the same.
No, you're right.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, I've had ultra marathon runners come in and literally be puking after a minute of rolling. So if that doesn't show you that, like, those guys are in phenomenal shape, but it's totally different.
I tell everybody, man, you want to get in shape quick, try this.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. It's like every, you know, the only thing I would probably compare it to maybe would be a swimmer. You know,
Yeah.
they have to use so many muscles and stuff, but even then, the isometric tension that you have to use is so different than
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it hits so many different elements compared to everything else. Like, you literally have to do like 10 other extracurricular things to somewhat simulate what you get out of one round of grappling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the other thing I always thought too is no matter what the other exercise is, let's say just for hypothetically a treadmill, you know, you're in control of the dial. You can go as fast or slow as you feel like going. If I'm rolling against you, you're in control of the dial.
Right.
Like, no, I can't control it. Like, if you're better than me, I have to keep up with your pace.
Right.
You set.
It's always such an eye opener too when it's amazing how every single person you roll with is different. Like,
oh yeah,
it's just weird. Like, you know, you never know what to expect. You know, I was rolling this kid a couple months ago. I had never rolled with before, and he got his black belt about a year ago, or maybe a little more. But it was just the pace he set. I was, you know, it just takes you by surprise. You know, it's like how different each person's game is. You know,
definitely.
That's one of the silliest questions I always get. It's like, when, not even a question, but a statement, was when people, it's like, hey, I want to start jiu-jitsu. Yeah, not right now. I need to get in shape.
You got to get in shape first. Yeah.
It's like, bro, it's not going to happen. There's nothing that's going to set you up for success on the mat than just jumping on the mat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, you know, when I had the school too, like what you're saying, Rich, though, it's like the guys who come in and they, you know, they're a little sheepish about it anyway, and then they start rolling with other white belts or a blue belt who've been there for a while, and they're trying, you know, and they're just kicking the crap out of this poor guy, you know, and you lose students that way. It's,
yeah,
you know, you have to really rein all that in, you know. Sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, and it's important for school owners to realize the majority of your demographic is just going to be regular people. Like, the percentage of people that are going to be a high-level competitor is few and far between. It's maybe 1% of your entire school is going to be that type of person. So sure way to fail is to only cater towards that type of training. You know, if you're trying to build a school, you cater towards that, you're gonna put yourself out of business, because all the regular people are gonna quit.
Yeah. And just like Rod was saying, like, you know, everybody's different to roll with. Well, everybody's different when they walk in the door too. They all have a different path. They all have a different opinion as to why they're there, or a different mission. And
absolutely,
our job as coaches to figure out. We always ask every person, "Hey, why are you here? What do you want? Why do you want to do this? What's your reason for doing this?"
Yeah.
Because if you don't know that, how do you help them?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's been
my pleasure, guys.
And we want to come. It was funny, before this all happened, one of the other trips Rich and I were looking at doing is we wanted to go out west and stop in at your school, Adamson Brothers. They were going to have me out for a seminar.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Going to stop at Keith Owens. We were going to hit like a bunch of you guys.
It's just a matter of time. We're going to get through this. You know, it may take a while for things to get back to normal. Even when they do start giving schools the go ahead to start reopening, I think it needs to be approached in a measured manner and done in the smartest, safest possible way. because the temptation is going to be to go completely back to normal, and that's going to backfire. There's just too much data showing that that's kind of going to backfire. So especially the scrutiny we're going to be under as grappling art, you're going to have to show that we're taking a lot of precautionary measures and limiting contact and class size and all these things. It's probably going to take many months after we were allowed to reopen to get things back to normal. But once it does, we're going to be doing all the things that we used to do, and we can get together and schedule our trips and get back to life as usual.
We'll be out there. I have to share you this last story with you. When we were out there the last time, Rich and I woke up in the morning. We're like, oh, I want to hit Starbucks. I got to get my English breakfast today. So we set the GPS, and we're driving, we're talking. All of a sudden, we're in this weird area. Like, there can't be a Starbucks here. And all of a sudden, you've reached your destination. We were at the headquarters of Starbucks.
Oh, no. That's funny.
The gate
they're on every corner.
Go here. So.
There are places here where literally you can see another Starbucks from the Starbucks you're in. You just look out the window and there's another Starbucks like down the road. It's crazy.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, we were actually at the factory, which I thought was funny.
Nice.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on, both of you. Ron, thank you.
All right, gentlemen. It's great seeing you guys. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Have a great night.
You too.